said it was debunked, but I'd like to believe it wasn't. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NBA Deeper Dive, presented by No House Advantage. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D. Along with me, Adam Scherer, Ship My Money DFS, his usual energetic, enthusiastic self, joining us on an 8-game Monday slate. What's up, man? You got to a great Ravens game yesterday. I must say, just an absolute snooze fest.
Yeah, excellent game. Tons of nothing happening. Which is exactly what I wanted from a DFS standpoint. I still lost, like my day still sucked, but that's what I was hoping for. But yeah, there was not much going on.
Usually there's nothing worse than sweating unders when you bet an under in a game. I don't think I sweat that for a single second. Like,
no,
because I bet the under there. It was, what was it, 3-0 at halftime?
Yeah, I think so. I know I had 15% of the Panthers defense, so I was enjoying that. But yeah, just nothing happened.
Not great. Anyway, we got 8 games to talk about today, and my God, a lot of absences. As you can see, Golden State Warriors 10-point dogs. Orlando with some news that just broke. A few other pretty significant pieces. Miami almost double-digit dogs without Jimmy Butler and company. So we'll talk about all of that. Happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Let's get us over. We're almost at 100 already. I should have known that you guys would come through from the jump here with almost 700 people watching. Subscribe to the channel, and yeah, let's get into it. So we got 8 games. Before we get into these actual games, just we'll ask you some of the stuff I always do to kick off the show. Are there certain specific spots that we're just going to be spending way more time on than other games today?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a few teams that are just really, really shorthanded, and we're going to have to figure out, those rotations, and you're going to get really good plays from those games, and then other spots where you have healthy teams, and it's sort of just, guys that you can obviously get to, but aren't going to look like priorities on a slate where there's several teams that are extremely shorthanded.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's so much going on here, and we'll dive straight into it. Atlanta, 2.5-point dogs against the Cleveland Cavaliers, 226.5 total for this one. DeAndre Hunter questionable. On the other side, you have no Karis LeVert. Dean Wade remains out. Kevin Love is questionable. But to start with Atlanta here, I guess the question I was kind of getting at is not when I say do we spend more time, I phrase it wrong in the sense of like when you get these other teams now, first of all, how much stars and scrubs are we going to be looking at today with so much available value? And some of the value seems a little sketchy. Can't wait to get into that with you a little bit. But like an Atlanta Hawks team, how much are we looking to get up to these 9K guys in Murray and Trae Young tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're obviously going to look good, and they're going to be relatively easy to get to. You do have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the same position, who's probably going to look a little bit better. You have Jordan Poole, who's going to take a lot of ownership at those positions as well. So I wouldn't call either guy a priority, but it is going to be relatively easy to get to them with the value that we have. Right now, Trae Young pulling 10% ownership, DeJounte Murray pulling 6%. Both of those make sense to me, but this is, again, just one of those, there's going to be a lot of teams like this where, to me, it's more so just guys that are going to fit into lineups here and there, but that aren't going to be guys that you're really building around as huge priorities.
If Hunter sits, is there anything that's going to stand out in the event that he sits? Just given that he does, it's not like he's the most productive player, right? Far below a per minute fantasy point per minute production type of guy, but he is also somebody that's playing huge minutes lately.
Yeah, it does potentially open up AJ Griffin. He's only $3,500. Griffin's produced 0.88 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's been taking on a bigger role for Atlanta. If he were to slide into the starting lineup for DeAndre Hunter, I think he ends up looking like a pretty good value option. If they were to go to like Justin Holiday, then he's still a value option, but I don't think as appealing as Griffin, just because you're talking about somebody that averages like 0.6 fantasy points per minute instead of nearly 0.9. So there's the potential for it to open up some value, but it's not like he's a really high usage guy. Maybe you see a little bit more usage going to John Collins if Hunter is out, because Hunter actually has a usage rate 5 points higher than Collins, but I don't expect it to make a huge on-court impact. I think it just potentially opens up the minutes for Griffin.
It's funny. Dirty Hippie says, nice name. We better get another Drunk Adam Christmas show this year. Last year had me rolling. Now, I'm assuming we're referring to the one where you inexplicably burped mid-sentence and Jordan and I couldn't hold back laughter, and it just became like one of the greatest scenarios, or one of the greatest moments in our history. But was that around Christmas time? Was that a year ago?
It was the middle of the summer. The reason I was at the bar was because it was like 100 degrees and my air conditioning wasn't working.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so I don't think you did a Christmas show with us. I mean, Jordan's the one that got tuned up.
When it was cold out, because your heat wasn't.
It definitely
working.
wasn't when it was cold out.
I thought your heat.
Wait, Jordan's saying it was your heat.
No, it was air conditioning. It was air conditioning.
Was it AC? Because I don't know if Offie did any MLB shows in the summer.
That wasn't MLB.
It was about.
Oh, he's right. He's right.
Maybe maybe it was when my heat wasn't working.
You're right. I didn't do a single MLB show. Yeah, we'll have to go back.
Well, it wasn't this summer. It was.
Right. It could have also just been right. Like, no, but Josh and I did all the NBA playoff stuff together. I don't know. I think Jordan cracked the code. I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, you might be right.
Because I think I could search that on Twitter somewhere and find it. But Elijah said I'm talking about two different drunk. I think it's only been
there's
one
only
time.
been one.
Yeah, I don't remember a second time. That was the most memorable experience. But it was definitely basketball. I almost remember who you were talking about. I think you were talking about the Knicks. But
I was gonna say, like, yeah, it was definitely basketball because I remember being impressed that I was able to do the show as coherently.
Like, there were signs, but at the same time, I remember coming off of it being like, that could have gone so much worse than it did, but it didn't. I still think you were talking about the Knicks, but we'll find it. Someone will find it. Jordan's already looking it up, I think. Yeah. All right. There we go. What about the Cleveland side? Do you think we see Kevin Love today?
I don't know. Maybe.
All right. Well, I mean, I asked because it's not that he's going to be popular or anything. He's been a good per minute guy, but I'm not sure how much it affects the rotation. I'm just wondering that, in the event that he gets out, are there any, because, you have no Dean Wade. Again, not saying that makes a big difference, but would that shake up the rotation enough to open up any value, or is there just so much good stuff out there that it probably wouldn't make a difference?
It potentially opens up Chetty. We saw Chetty play 37 minutes yesterday. Some of that was, garbage time. He just played straight through the fourth quarter, played almost the entire second half. But if Love is out, you can project more minutes for him. He is pretty inexpensive. I certainly wouldn't expect 37 minutes again, but it does make him look like a reasonable value if Love sits. If Love is in, then I'm not going to Chetty. Potentially makes Jared Allen look a little bit better if Love is out too. Could play a few more minutes. Possibly. We got 27 minutes yesterday, but again, that was a game where he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. So slight bump, I think, for Allen in terms of playing time or potential playing time if Love is out, and then a bump for Chetty as well.
All right. Well, what do we want to do with Donovan Mitchell today? Coming off a back-to-back, but at the same time, they only played 27 minutes, just beat up on an undermanned Miami team yesterday. And he's been pretty excellent this season for a guy that's priced at 9,100.
Yeah, Mitchell, I think, is very similar to DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, just a little bit less expensive. So I like getting there. Like, he's averaging around 38 minutes per game, likely to play a lot here as long as this game's competitive. Only $9,100, averaging 1.27 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's just another guy that looks really good. The reason he's not getting more ownership than he is, and right now he's at about 15% on DraftKings. The reason he's not getting more than he is just simply that, you don't really want to necessarily take a stand. Like, if you're playing a lot of lineups, you don't necessarily want to just have your stand be that Donovan Mitchell is going to beat DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and all of these other similar players, because that's kind of just a weird spot to take a stand since they're all about the same. But, he is going to look really good.
All right. Jared Allen actually getting the most ownership for this team today, coming in at mid 6K price point. He's just north of a fantasy point per minute guy on the season, going up against this Atlanta front court. What do we do with Allen and Mobley and the rest of this team, assuming we don't get any news that shakes the rotation up?
Yeah, Allen looks pretty good. Pulling around 20% ownership. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. 6,700, should play 33-ish minutes. So he looks pretty good. Evan Mobley at 7K. Prefer him when Allen's out and you're getting those center minutes. I think he looks kind of like a marginal option. Kind of surprised he's getting 11% ownership. I thought it would be a little bit lower. But, again, about a fantasy point per minute guy that is just going to look decent here.
All right, let's talk about Orlando and Indiana. So obviously no Banchero, and now you have no Wendell Carter Jr. So That's the second game missed in a row. We saw what the starting lineup looked like last time out. Bama's not exactly cheap, but he is somebody that can produce, solid numbers in the starting lineup. He's coming off a game where he played, 33 minutes, I think? Yeah, 33 minutes in that game. But while he saw an uptick in minutes, it was also RJ Hampton that ended up playing. Didn't he play extended minutes in that last 25 minutes?
Yeah, he played
in that last game.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's good, but it was interesting to see that that's where a lot of these minutes went, just given that they played a pretty big starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, that was also a game where Gary Harris didn't play. So I'm not expecting anything out of Hampton here, but I do really like Bamba. In the previous game that he had started without Carter, he also played significant minutes. I think he played like 26 or 27, but he was on pace to play a lot more. He had some early foul trouble. So that was, good to see from a DFS standpoint. 24 minutes or 29 minutes against Minnesota. But that was a game where he also had 5 fouls. So I think you can pretty comfortably expect north of 30 from Bamba as long as he avoids foul trouble. We know he's a good point per minute guy. He's at 1 fantasy point per minute so far this season. So it looks like a really good option once again. Price tag's getting a little bit more expensive, but 5,800 certainly still a priority, I think.
So you've got no Wendell Carter Jr., obviously just a bunch of other injuries of guys on this team that have been out for an extended period, particularly Anthony. Just missing a lot of top production guys. So you're looking at Franz Wagner, you're looking at Jalen Suggs, Mo Bamba, Bol Bol, all these guys getting double-digit ownership against the Pacers team that, I don't know, I guess you could argue that the Pacers have been kind of surprising. Not a good defensive team, of course, but they hang around. They have a positive net rating on the season, but it still looks like a pretty nice matchup given the 226 total and all these injuries to Orlando. So outside of Bamba, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of the starters, at least, Suggs, Wagner, and Bol specifically, look pretty good here because when Carter's out, we have seen more playing time for Bol. When Carter's in, we've sort of seen his minutes get jerked around a little bit because Mo Bamba's been back in the rotation playing significant minutes. And so we've seen, sometimes Bol gets to like 30 when Carter's in, but a lot of times you're landing in that like 25 to 27 range. There's more minutes available now, though. He played 33 last game. He's 6,900, so that looks reasonable. Jalen Suggs at 6,300, Wagner at 7,200. Wagner's only averaged about 1 DraftKings point per minute without Banchero on the floor this year, but he does have a 29% usage rate and a 24.5% assist percentage. So there's certainly the opportunity for him to do even better than that. Bol's at 1.09 DraftKings points per minute without Banchero on the floor. Suggs at 1.06, 23.5% usage rate, but also about a 30% assist percentage. So all of those guys look pretty good. Defensively, Indiana certainly better when Miles Turner is on the floor, but still I think a pretty appealing spot to be getting to Orlando with Banchero out again.
All right. Let me ask you this then before we move on. Top options outside of Bamba for this team, if you were to just run down the list?
Suggs, Wagner, and Bol.
Okay. Are you willing to, 3 of them in a lineup today?
Yeah.
Normally,
that's fine.
Okay. Normally, I know you would say yes, but it's just we haven't gotten to some of these teams yet that have a ton of top guys out, namely Golden State, but a lot out for Orlando too. What about on the Pacers side? Not a ton of significant injuries. Tyrese Halliburton is Tyrese Halliburton in the same category as the Trae Youngs, the DeJounte Murrays, the Donovan Mitchells for you again today in that 9K range?
Yeah, he's another one where he looks good. He doesn't look drastically different than those guys, so I'm just going to want to be getting to him, getting to those guys as well. But 9,400 in a solid spot here. We know that Halliburton's been excellent this year, averaging 34, 35 minutes per game. Just looks really good, pulling low double-digit ownership, which is probably where he should be.
Okay. What about the rest of the Pacers?
Jalen Smith's still pretty inexpensive at 5,100. He is a really volatile option, but he's also averaging around 26 minutes per game over his last 10. He's averaging about a fantasy point per minute this season. So on average, you're getting, pretty solid production for a $5,100 salary, and there is plenty of upside there. He's pulling 11% ownership, so it's not like he's projected to be as popular as he was last slate when he let everyone down either. So I don't mind going back there. Miles Turner at 7,500. Pretty close to correctly priced now, I think. He has been a very, very good fantasy producer this year, averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, but averaging around 28, 29 minutes per game. And then you also just have this center position where, you have Mo Bamba, who looks really good. You have Jared Allen, who's $800 less expensive. And then we still have a bunch of teams to talk about as well.
We have Isaiah Jackson with a lot of positive leverage in our in our tools and our boom bust tool, which by the way, NBA, all of our NBA tools free for 3 days. If you want to take advantage of that, just use the link in the description or in the chat. Jordan can throw it in there as well. 3 free days, no strings attached. If you don't like it, you can leave, but you get the boom bust, the ownership, player projections, all of our tools available to you for those 3 days. And it's a great time to take advantage of for basketball, since unlike football, you can play every day. But I don't know, that seems odd. I mean, coming off, is this a spot where you'd take some shots on a slate that's got so many good, cheap options?
Sure, like in tournament lineups here and there. The thing with Jackson, he's basically just the backup center behind Miles Turner. So it's the same as, if you play Brandon Clark on a Memphis slate, or, you play Andre Drummond from, Chicago. You're just hoping that Turner gets in foul trouble and that Jackson picks up some more minutes, because he is a good point per minute guy. He's averaged 1.08 DraftKings points per minute this year. On average, you're just going to get like 17, 18, 19 minutes somewhere in there. But if Turner were to get in, big foul trouble, you could potentially get into the low to mid 20s from Jackson, in which case he ends up being really good. So he's a very low probability play, very low priority, but probably is going a little bit under-owned.
All right, let's keep it going here. Celtics, 6-point favorites against Chicago here. Jordan says it was January 20th. Was that the show? That was it? Okay.
Not this year, though.
Yeah.
Really?
For sure.
I definitely thought it was like last year.
No, 10 months ago makes sense.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, you were blacked out, so what do you know? You're not going to remember. Does the Celtics?
Yeah, actually, because 2021, I think I was still at my mom's helping her out because of the COVID stuff, right?
Yes, that for sure. Well,
yeah, because I know I moved.
Long?
Yeah, I moved back like Valentine's Day, somewhere around there.
So you were there like 10 months, probably.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. January 20th, a date that should live in infamy. Formerly Awesemo. Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. This isn't a team that's going to get a whole lot of play tonight, I wouldn't imagine, but 230 total. So there is that. They're 6-point favorites in Chicago. I guess when you're looking at a guy like Tatum, it's probably best to kind of contextualize the entire slate here. You have Giannis probable against the Portland Trailblazers. They're big favorites there. Curry's out. Lillard's out. SGA's 10 digits. Other than that, those are the only guys that are priced all the way up today. So it's not exactly like for an 8-game slate with all these crazy cheap options. We don't have a ton at the top to really get to. Jason Tatum's the second highest priced player tonight behind Giannis.
Yeah, and the fact that you don't have, Luka or Jokic or guys like that does make it a little bit easier to get to Tatum. He's still pretty much correctly priced here, though, averaging around 1.3 to 1.4 fantasy points per minute this year, giving you around 37 to 38 minutes per game. He's a good option, but I think he is correctly priced. There's just going to be a lot of lineups where, he ends up being Gilgeous-Alexander or Murray or Young or Halliburton or whoever. He's pulling around 10% ownership. Just another guy that I think looks good, but doesn't stand out relative to the other options.
Paul George is out.
Yeah, that was like right at the start of the show.
Was it? Those are always the ones I miss.
Yeah, and Kevin Love's expected to play.
Yep. Saw that right now. So yeah, I always, right when the show starts, I always miss that. And then you have to correct me there. Does Boston intrigue you anywhere else? Like Jaylen Brown's getting 11%. Horford's getting a little bit of love at $5,700. And then it pretty much just falls off a cliff from there on out. But that's usually the case when it comes to the Celtics team.
Yeah, I think Jaylen Brown's the other one that specifically interests me. Al Horford, we know, is fine at 5,700, but where he only has center eligibility on DraftKings, like the opportunity cost there is pretty high. On FanDuel, he has power forward eligibility at 5,500, so he looks a hell of a lot better there. But on DraftKings, he's basically just a Mo Bamba pivot. He certainly can beat Bamba today at much lower ownership, but I think Bamba's the bigger priority. Bamba projects better. Jaylen Brown, though, shooting guard, small forward, 8,500, seems to always have solid games for me and then just like not do anything in the fourth quarter and ends up sort of disappointing. But he's averaged 1.14 DraftKings points per minute this year. He has a 30% usage rate. He's averaging about 37 minutes per game. I think he's probably the easiest guy actually to get to from Boston.
Jordan, you're going to play that clip in the intermission? Okay, 600. That should be easy. We got about 200 likes right now. for anyone that hasn't seen this clip, boy, you're in for a real treat. Let me tell you, it's the best thing ever. But I think it's very doable to get to 600 likes. I mean, that's definitely lofty, but it's doable, no question. And it only takes a second to hit that thumbs up. All right, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls. On the other side of this game at home, Zach LaVine's price has, I don't know, it's $7,000 Zach LaVine. I know he's been, relatively cheap, but this is pretty much a bottoming out point for him on the season. I can understand why he's getting a little bit of ownership here. Certainly not a good matchup, but what are your thoughts on LaVine at 7K, just like a flat mid-range price point?
Yeah, the pricing on the Bulls in general, like you said, not a good matchup, but they're all just sort of bottoming out. We had seen elevated pricing from, from when LaVine was out, for example. You had seen DeRozan's price get up there, and you had seen Vooch's get up there. But now coming back to 7K for LaVine, expecting him to play, 34, 35 minutes. He's averaged 1.07 DraftKings points per minute this year, 27% usage rate, and a 20% assist percentage. There's certainly a nice ceiling for him at that price tag. Same can be said for Vooch, who is also projected for about 11% ownership, averaging 1.14 DraftKings points per minute. DeRozan a little bit more expensive, but still sub 8K for, I think, the first time in a while, averaging about 1.14 fantasy points per minute as well. So all of those guys look good. I think LaVine's probably my favorite at 7K, but they're all solid options. And then Andre Drummond, kind of mentioned him before. He's basically Isaiah Jackson, just with center only eligibility, but only $3,900 for somebody that when he's on the floor, he's going to produce really well. He's averaged 1.3 DraftKings points per minute this year. You just need Vooch to get in foul trouble, basically.
Yeah, no question. I'm wondering too if it's just that these guys have bottomed out, because unlike last season, you've seen them play a lot of games together already this year. I mean, outside of LaVine earlier, but like when all three of these guys are on the floor, their prices should naturally come down. If you remember last year, they just kept bouncing higher and higher because LaVine would be out and then this guy would be out. And then before you know it, DeRozan's $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. And when they're healthy, Chicago is one of those teams, they're like Minnesota, they're like the Pelicans when they're healthy, where from an average, from a medium projection standpoint, they typically aren't going to look that good because you have to project Vooch to get his and LaVine to get his and DeRozan to get his. But on an individual game basis, there's a lot of volatility there because you're just going to get the games where LaVine takes over or DeRozan takes over or Vooch takes over. So it makes them typically appealing tournament options. And then now you're just getting the prices at a point where they're in line with the medium projection. So it's not even like you're really overpaying just trying to get their ceilings. You're getting, they look fine even from a median standpoint.
Yeah, no question. We have Vooch with some positive leverage on our boom bust tool. Zach LaVine with little negative there, but yeah, the boom bust tool sweet. If you haven't checked it out, you can get the ownership, the boom probability, bust probability, optimal lineup percentage, leverage score, all of that stuff, like projections, everything's in that tool. You're just one-stop shop really for everything you're looking for. You want to talk about anything else with Chicago? We're good, right? We can move on.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about.
All right. So let's talk about New York Knicks, Oklahoma City Thunder. Knicks 2-point dogs against the Thunder, the upstart Oklahoma City Thunder. RJ Barrett, though, pulling a decent amount of ownership in this one, 18%, $6,100. This game's got another 230 total. So there's some interesting pieces here.
Yeah, RJ Barrett's pretty cheap for the minutes that he plays. The problem is that RJ Barrett is playing absolutely awful this season, so he's kind of deserved that price tag. But You're typically looking at around 35 minutes from him. Can play a little bit more depending on how the game goes. Does have a 25.5% usage rate as well, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute, but he only has a 49% true shooting percentage. That number should come up, but I've also been saying that for like a month now. So I don't know, maybe he just continues to suck, but should get better going forward, should produce at a higher rate. Looks good at that price tag. We do have some potential injury news that we're waiting on here as well that actually matters. Derrick Rose is questionable, as is Cam Reddish. Last game, Quentin Grimes started in place of Reddish, played a ton of minutes. If Reddish is out, you're getting a 3K shooting guard small forward in Grimes that's likely to play a lot of minutes. If Reddish is in, then no interest in Grimes. And then Rose, if he's out, I think probably gives you a couple more minutes for Jalen Brunson. He's basically just been the straight backup to Brunson. So I think it's likely that Brunson would play a little bit more. And it probably also helps to solidify Emmanuel Quickley's minutes as well.
Man, Grimes with 13 rebounds and assists last game combined.
Wow.
Seems unsustainable, but
yeah,
it's
no Andrew Nemhard.
What's that?
No Andrew Nemhard for the Pacers.
Yeah, he was ruled out a few minutes ago as well. Does that change anything for you?
Possibly. I'm assuming you're just going to get Naismith in the starting lineup, in which case I don't really care. But it does potentially open the door for more playing time for Mathurin.
All right, let's get into. Well, actually, we'll keep this going for a little bit here, and then we'll get into OKC. So, like you said, a lot of this is contingent upon what we see in Derrick Rose and Cam Reddish. So that plays a pretty significant role here. Also, that's why you watch Live Before Lock. After this, you got Greg Ehrenberg, Matt LaMarca. Is Eric still in Paris, Jordan?
I think he's flying back.
Okay. What was that, like 10 days?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a lot of Instagram posts of Eric.
I liked a couple of them. Try to do my part.
Yeah.
I bet you did too. I bet you were just stalking his Instagram.
Yeah, probably just DMing him nonstop.
I can't remember the last time I posted on Instagram. I get stupid fucking notifications that I should just turn off.
Yeah.
Like this person updated their story. I don't care. I really don't. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be that guy, but do you get excited when you see Instagram notifications?
I don't think I get Instagram notifications.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Do you still go on Facebook often?
Not often. Like I'll scroll through it. I don't.
Do you post like daily? You don't post like daily updates?
Yeah, no, I Facebook post what I'm doing every day, so my family knows.
I bet you do. Some people still do that. New York Knicks, though, aside from RJ Barrett, any other spots you want to go to? Of course, pending the news.
If we assume that Reddish and Rose are in, I think Brunson and Quickly and Randall all look fine, but nothing that looks like a priority. But again, if Reddish is out, I really like Grimes, assuming he starts again at 3K. Quickly will look a little bit better, and so will Brunson if Rose is out.
OKC. Josh Giddey. So here's another one. You're talking mid-range price point, obviously pulling ownership for that. It's funny too, because there's you can make some decent balanced lineups on this slate. It seems like too. I'm not saying you need to, but do you think there is any? Do you think there is any merit to going kind of balanced in some lineups and foregoing some of these maybe shaky value plays tonight?
Yeah, I think you can. But that's also going to, in part, depend on what we end up getting from OKC, because they upgraded 3 guys today from not playing to questionable. Darius Baisley, Isaiah Joe, Trey Mann are all questionable now. So when Josh and I did the show this morning, it looked like OKC was only going to have 9 guys because Jang and Jalen Williams, the big, are both in the G League right now. So they're out. Pokashevsky's out. Obviously, Holmgren's out. So it looked like we were going to get Oklahoma City value where they only have 9 guys, so they can only screw with the rotation so much, and you're actually going to be wanting to get to these guys. If they go back to having 12 guys and you have Baisley, Joe, and Mann all playing, they start to look a lot less appealing, and you start to lose that $3,100 Lindy Waters or $3,200 Kenrich Williams that you were getting before, $3,600 Robinson Earl. All of those guys should be getting ownership if OKC only has 9 players. But if they have 12 guys, I don't really feel confident in any of it.
Things start looking weirder too if it just like if Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney are out, because I haven't seen anything to suggest that they're definitely playing tonight.
No, they're both questionable.
Right. So that would that wipes out the whole starting basically the whole starting lineup. So yeah, get very interesting here. If those guys who are questionable for OKC don't play, well, actually, hold on. If they do play, not from a value perspective, but if everybody that was questionable, the pertinent ones, end up being on the floor or active, where does your interest lie in SGA and Josh Giddey?
Yeah, I don't think those guys are affected by much. I mean, we saw Giddey randomly get benched going into the second half the other day, but that's something that you can't really anticipate. If it happens, it happens. But those two really shouldn't be affected. You know that they're going to get theirs. SGA in particular, playing around 36 minutes per game, averaging about 1.4 DraftKings points per minute. One of my favorite pay-up options today. He's getting 20% ownership and should be at 10K. So he looks really good. Giddey at 6,800 looks solid as well. Again, just not really going to be affected by those other guys. It's the Aaron Wiggins, Lindy Waters, Kenrich Williams, Jalen Williams, Jeremiah Robinson Earl pieces that, if Joe Baisley and man are in, their minutes become a lot less secure because you're just back to OKC doing what they've done all year, where they just throw random lineups out there.
Yeah, not to mention a lot of those guys you just rattled off, they need minutes to succeed.
Right. DeAndre Hunter is out.
Okay. Yeah, like an Aaron Wiggins needs significant minutes for you to feel even remotely confident in him. He's not a guy that's going to, play 22 minutes and you're satisfied with the results. Almost never.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Wiggins this year, 0.71 DraftKings points per minute. Jalen Williams, the guard, 0.77. Kenrich Williams, 0.73. Like, these guys are players that you really need to be out there for a lot of minutes. Robinson Earls at 0.94. He's somebody that, if they are shorthanded, I actually think is interesting at that price. Same can be said for Muscala at 3K flat. He's a good point per minute guy as well. But if they have those extra 3 bodies, then I become a lot less interested.
Okay. Laffy's sentences are wordy and redundant. Adam is terse to the point. Yeah, well, when you host a show and it's an hour long, you have to pace it, fella.
And it's with me.
What?
I said, and it's with me. Like, if you don't talk a lot, at the speed I talk and how few words I say, we'd be done.
Right. Like, this is, if you and I were having a conversation in person, I probably wouldn't speak like that. But we gotta. I think I've done enough. I've done enough shows with you now to know exactly how it goes. I can tell what you're going to be like before we start a show.
No way. I'm always the same. I just don't say anything.
Bullshit, man.
I don't say anything before the show.
No, you're not. Sometimes you just got more flash to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. See?
Today's not one of those.
Today's not one of those. All right. Let's go. Let's talk. Actually, anything else for OKC?
No.
All right. So, like, if I were to go, all right, Golden State Warriors, 10-point dogs, go. That does not, that would not play well for us. We'd be out of here by 5:41. But the Warriors right now, the ownership just looks insane. Kuminga, 56%. Jordan Poole, and we just updated ownership not long ago. So this is all current. Poole, 50%. And then you're still getting guys like Wiggins, assuming he plays, he's questionable. Kevon Looney, questionable. Double-digit ownership. Moses Moody. It's nice to see that we bumped Ty Jerome down because we had him at like 20% earlier, which seemed kind of wild for a guy that hasn't played in like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. I thought you were going to say something else. I didn't know you were going to leave. I didn't know you were going to leave me off Ty Jerome.
Just setting the table for you.
But yeah, no, Golden State's going to look really good. It's just a matter of who, because if Wiggins and Looney are in, obviously they look like solid options. Wiggins right now projected for 15% ownership, Looney for 10. You would expect, Wiggins to get more offensive opportunities if he does play with Curry out. But if Wiggins and Looney are out, then there's even more minutes available for just random bench pieces from the Warriors. One way or the other, Jordan Poole is going to look good. He's played 223 minutes without Curry on the floor this year, 29% usage rate, a little over a fantasy point per minute, also has a 34.5% assist percentage. Jonathan Kuminga hasn't been a good fantasy producer this year, but he's only 3,300 and he's likely playing a lot of minutes here. So he's going to look like a good value option. Probably a little bit overowned in terms of optimal percentage versus ownership, but that's only one piece. Like, he's still just going to allow you to get, really good players into your lineup. So I think he's going to look like a priority here. And then just, looks even better if Looney and Wiggins are out. 3,200 for DiVincenzo, potentially playing a bit more. Only played 16 minutes yesterday. So I assume he's going to get decent run on the back-to-back here. The last time he played, he was on pace to play, the last back-to-back rather, he was on pace to play, I think, like 16 minutes again. That was obviously when they had guys in, but then he got ejected. So didn't play 16 minutes, but you could certainly see a little bit more out of him. Anthony Lamb, particularly if Looney and Wiggins get ruled out at 3,400, starts to look interesting.
Couple questions for you here. Let's say we'll bounce around for a second. This game's really important, particularly on this side of the ball. And Zion's expected to play on the other side. Let's say Wiggins and Looney are in. What do you project the starting lineup to be?
Poole, you said, so with them in, Poole.
If with both of them in, yeah.
Yeah. Poole, Moody, maybe. Poole, Moody, Kuminga, or Wiggins, Kuminga, Looney, I guess.
Yeah. Because I think the last time Curry Clay and Dre were all out, resting on the second of a back-to-back, wasn't, yeah, because Wiggins and Looney were out too.
Right. They sat everybody that game.
Everyone. Yeah. So it's definitely feasible that happens again tonight. If that's the case, despite it being an 8-game slate, are you fine with getting 4 Warriors if the entire starting lineup is out?
I probably would allow it to happen. I don't think it would happen all that often just because there are so many other good plays. It also sort of depends on OKC. Like if you have a 9-man OKC team and you have Golden State playing without all their starters, you're just going to end up typically mixing in a lot of guys from both teams. Whereas if OKC is playing with 12, Golden State's going to relatively look better.
Yeah, true. If you talked on this a little bit, but let me wrap it up with this. If Wiggins and Looney are out, does anyone else kind of shoot to the top of the priority list for you outside of, Kuminga, Poole? Moody would definitely become a lot more interesting. He's minimum salary, already getting a little bit of ownership. You have DiVincenzo in there. Ty Jerome hasn't played in a while, but that would probably open up a decent amount of minutes to him as well. I mean, everything gets wide open if these two guys sit.
Yeah, if those guys are both out, then there's a lot. It is worth noting. So in that last game where they sat all the starters, they didn't sit Looney. He did play. The rest of the starters sat. And
right.
Looney,
Yeah, that's a good call.
Looney
and
does
DiVincenzo was out as well.
What'd you say?
There was no DiVincenzo either.
Right. DiVincenzo was out, so that was part of the reason you saw so many minutes for Ty Jerome. Looney does have a really long consecutive game streak. I think he's like second longest in the NBA or something. So I don't know. Yeah, regular season games, yeah.
That's crazy.
Played like 127 straight or something like that. So I don't know, like, obviously if that matters to him or whatever. But if you get like Wiggins out, I think there's a pretty good chance Anthony Lamb ends up in the starting lineup if either of these guys are out. So Lamb would be one that I think you can play him regardless. Like if Wiggins and Looney are in, Lamb sort of makes sense as a lower owned pivot to a very, very popular Kuminga. I think Kuminga's the better play. He projects better, assuming he starts, all of that. But you don't know exactly how these rotations are going to go. You could certainly see Lamb steal some minutes from him. But if Wiggins and or Looney are out, I think it's likely you see Lamb in the starting lineup, in which case he goes from looking not very useful to looking really, really good.
All right. Let's talk about the New Orleans side. A little bit less murky here. You mentioned something earlier in the show when we were talking about who was it? When we were talking about what team was it? Oh, fuck it. I don't even remember now. The Chicago Bulls. It was similar to this Pelicans team. We always say, yeah, these guys can all put up big numbers. And of course, they're about to have a very appealing matchup tonight against the skeleton crew of a Warriors team. But you have McCollum, you have Ingram, and you have Zion Williamson all scattered throughout that 8K range today. It's no surprise that no one's going to be super popular on this team.
Yeah, they just look how they normally do when they're all healthy. Obviously CJ McCollum, Zion, Ingram, they're all capable of having big games, but they're just not really priorities because none of them project that well for their salary with everybody else in. Larry Nance also 4,800. Backup center, very likely to be closing this game. Probably gets around 24 minutes, but there's enough value on this slate that I don't think he really stands out there either as anything more than just a tournament flyer. So it's an appealing spot. Golden State not very good defensively and missing Draymond. Golden State plays at a fast pace, all of that, but I think the pricing on New Orleans is just pretty much where it should be.
Hippie, no, I'm not on the Showdown show tonight. I did the strategy show this morning with Matt Kajeski. That was a good one, but stick around. After Live Before Lock for NBA, you got NFL Showdown Live Before Lock with Matt Savoca and Neil Orfield. So they'll guide you through that one all the way up till 8:15. Anything else on this game, or you want to keep it going?
Somebody said that Jordan Poole's not going to be able to do anything against Alvarado and Herb Jones. This was the same team that they played the last time he
was 5 for 18 in that game.
He only had 36.5 DraftKings points. It was relatively disappointing. Shot 5 for 18, only 3 of 10 from 3. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like, he had a solid game for even not playing particularly well. I'm not worried about, the opponent.
Yeah, I wouldn't be particularly worried about it, just given the volume is going to be there, no question. Like it has to be there in this spot.
Yeah, and he's just cheap. He's 5,800 on DraftKings, 66 on FanDuel.
Hey, one last thing on this game. if Wiggins does play, do you have any concerns that he will be limited, and kind of curtail the minutes? Or do you think that Andrew Wiggins is going to have, full run? Because if that's the case, you're getting Andrew Wiggins without Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
If he plays, I assume he's getting full run. I'm a little bit more concerned about Looney just because of, what I had said with the consecutive game streak. Like, do you get that, Kevon Looney started and then just doesn't play anymore type thing? I'm not projecting that to happen, but it at least, sort of concerns me. With Wiggins, though, if they play him, I assume he's playing. Why wouldn't they just rest him if they want to rest him? So yeah, if Wiggins goes, I assume he's playing. He has played 73 minutes without Klay or Steph on the floor this year. 22.3% usage rate, 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. Not as productive as I would expect him to be, but certainly an easier path to a ceiling game if Curry's not out there.
3 games to go, 5 down, 3 to go. Let me see if we got any news coming in here.
Magic starting lineup, same as usual.
Yep, same as last time. Okay, cool. Man, you following this Idaho story at all? Did I get you interested?
No, I mean, I had read about it like more after you sent it to me, and then I forgot about it.
It's wild. Makes no sense.
Have they have they like released anything?
They don't even have they have no murder weapon. They have no suspect. They have no lead. And then they're like, yeah, but the town's safe. You're not at risk. How can you say that?
Yeah, that's wild.
Oh, it's crazy. Unless they know something we don't know. But yeah, no motive, no suspect. It's insane. Anyway, perfect segue into our sponsor, No House Advantage. If you haven't checked them out yet, you should definitely do so for myriad reasons, for many reasons here. I'll try not to be too redundant. First off, you get $50 first match deposit bonus when you sign up using the link in the description or the one that Jordan can throw in the chat right now. Second of all, it's just a sick place to play. But the most important thing, right, outside of the fact that all the research you do on the deeper dive, live before lock, all the research you do throughout the day is going to be applicable for this because it's player prop contest against the field. You're just building lineups, but without salary. Player props, over, under, no juice, nothing like that. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. Ones you're least confident in go at the bottom. They get the fewest points. But the overlay there has been stupid. I mean, they're intentionally just loading these up to have Matt. Do we have, Jordan, is there overlay right now? Like, are we pacing some overlay?
The contest is only 5% full right now.
For tonight's 7:00 slate?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what, seriously, you could get as many deposit bonuses and this and that as you want. You don't find overlay like this anywhere else, especially when you're seeing like $5, $10, $15,000 up top to first place. You have the multi-lineup generator built in over there at No House Advantage. We have the optimal lineups tool for free at Stokastic. We have all of our player prop projections for No House Advantage free at Stokastic as well. Use the link. Get your $50 first match deposit bonus. Check it out. It's awesome. The overlay has been insane. And if you want, you can also test your skills against the house where, pick 'em style, you hit all of your entries, you hit all of your picks, you 20x your entry. No House Advantage, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Link in the description and in chat. Check it out. The overlay over there is just silly right now. You'd be crazy not to take advantage of it. All right, so let's get to this next one, Adam. We have Portland and Milwaukee. So now you've got a spot with no Damian Lillard. That's, I would say, significant in a spot like this. He's going to be out for quite some time. But just given that, we've seen him out before, and he returns. Now he's out again. Are any price points for Portland in a position where you can be like, hey, that's not right with Damian Lillard out, or are they kind of all appropriate?
I think they're all pretty appropriate, especially when you start comparing it to other spots on the slate. Anthony Simons clearly is going to look better with Lillard out, but he's also just sort of overpriced for Lillard to be in. So it creates a situation where now I think he's more just correctly priced. He's at 1.15 DraftKings points per minute without Lillard on the floor this year. Does have a 31.6% usage rate and a 25% assist percentage. So I like Simons. I think that there's a lot of upside for him, but you also have SGA at the position, you have Poole, you have, just other guys to get to as well. So he's the only guy on this team really pulling any ownership at about 10%. Nurkic should see more usage without Lillard out there as well. He's averaging 1.26 DraftKings points per minute. You also get an increased chance of him being in the closing lineup. We've seen frequently that when the Blazers are fully healthy, you get Justice Winslow closing in place of Nurkic. With Lillard out, I think it's more likely that Winslow and Nurkic close together. So that makes Nurkic look a little bit more appealing. I do like him. He's getting 5% ownership. Just seems a little bit low to me.
Yeah, I'm always a sucker when it comes to use of Nurkic.
Yeah, same. And then I think Winslow looks decent at 4,400 as well. I would expect that he starts and plays around 30 minutes.
Okay. I think the thing with Nurkic is, you can get a game where he has 4 fouls, to start the second half basically, and only plays 25 minutes. Or you can get the games where, he does get up to 30 minutes, 30 some minutes, and just absolutely annihilates, because he's a great rebounder. He's an above average passer. You have no Damian Lillard on the floor now, and he's an above average scorer. How many games have we seen where, and look, I know they're kind of few and far between for Nurkic, but he's usually more expensive than this. We've seen so many games from him where it's like 20 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 blocks, 4 steals, just crazy performances from him. I think he's always in play when you're getting no ownership on him.
Yeah, agreed. And especially now, like with Lillard being out, because again, not that you're just expecting increased point per minute production, but it just makes it so much easier for him to be in the closing lineup. He's averaged around 29 minutes per game as a starter this year, but when you have all 5 of the starters plus Winslow playing, a lot of times you're getting those like 25, 26 minute games because Winslow is closing. But here I expect Nurkic to be back around 30 minutes.
Okay. Any priorities from Portland though?
No, I like Simons and Nurkic the most.
All right. How about Milwaukee? Giannis Antetokounmpo. Despite the Golden State Warriors news, you said, pending OKC news, that could change things. But Giannis at this price, you think, and not many high-priced players surrounding him in that same area, still only 5.6% ownership right now.
Yeah, I think he's a much, much better play on FanDuel than on DraftKings. Like he's still just
just made somebody happy. That just made someone real happy.
Oh yeah. He's just really, really expensive. Like on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's like $1,000 less expensive than on DraftKings. But on DraftKings, it's just, you can make good lineups with Giannis, but I've said it like every slate recently. A lot of those lineups, you're going to look at it and just be like, oh, well, I can improve this, 4K guy to somebody a lot better if I just knock Giannis down to SGA or, even Tatum or, Jaylen Brown, guys that are just a lot less expensive and can still go for 50 plus relatively easily. So I think a really, really good play on FanDuel, much more of a luxury on DraftKings.
Okay. Who is your favorite high price player tonight, right now?
SGA.
It is SGA? Okay. So outside of Giannis, though, I mean, this whole Milwaukee team today, they're 9.5 point favorites, 214.5 total. This is not even close. I mean, just by far the lowest total on the slate. Is there anything else that piques your interest, getting virtually no ownership across the entirety of this team?
No, every player on DraftKings, with the exception of Giannis, is projected for less than 1% ownership, and there's just nothing that really stands out. Bobby Portis is getting 10% on FanDuel because he's only 6K, but other than that, nobody's getting ownership there either. So I think that's fine on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I'm not planning to pay $7,200 for Portis, $6,600 for Lopez. Like, sure, but I'd go to Nurkic first, for example, just, even from this game.
Okay. Jordan, I don't think we're getting there, man. We're at 369 likes. You called for 600. It's a shame missing out on a piece of history here. Yeah, I wasn't talking about Josh. I was talking about, people that ask for FanDuel content. Hit the thumbs up. There's 2,300 of you in chat right now. See what we'll start small. Let's see if we can get to 500 first. Am I gonna hit you over the face with it like Josh Engelman, our buddy Josh Engelman does? But let's see if we get to 500. I come here humbly asking you to hit that thumbs up. There you go, 451. We're in business. All right, Miami. No Jimmy Butler. No Tyler Hero. This is also one, okay, I would assume that you expect Bam to play. The only reason I'm asking, because I know he was questionable last game, but it is the second end of a back-to-back. You also have Dwayne Dedman questionable. You have Gabe Vincent questionable. So assuming on how this shakes out, maybe things look a little bit different.
Yeah, this team certainly has the potential to be extremely shorthanded again. We saw them play with 7 guys the other day and basically just ruin the slate because you just had to play a bunch of Miami. They still don't have Duncan Robinson today. He played yesterday, but he's out today. Gabe Vincent's questionable. Adebayo is questionable. Dedmon's questionable. If those guys were to all be ruled out, then you're talking about a really shorthanded Miami team again. If they're all in, then there is still some value here. I mean, Bam Adebayo would look good. He's averaged about 1.15 fantasy points per minute without Jimmy Butler on the floor this year. He did only play 27 minutes yesterday because he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter of the blowout. I'd expect him to be playing, mid 30s if he's good to go. So he's going to look good. Jovic started alongside him, played 32 minutes yesterday. He's going to still look like a reasonable value one way or the other, but particularly if the more guys that are out, the better Jovic is going to look. But 4K flat on DraftKings, that looks good. Strus and Caleb Martin, they're at price points right now where they're fine, but if you have Vincent in, if you have Adebayo in, I don't think that they're particularly appealing. But if those guys are out, you're just looking at more playing time for them. Kyle Lowry gets a lot more production if Adebayo's out. He already looks solid at 7,200 with Adebayo, assuming Adebayo's in, but just going to look even better the more guys that you start taking out.
Right. Yeah, this team could get real weird. I know they got smoked yesterday, so you saw some limited minutes from all of them. But
yeah, I mean, if the questionable players sit, I'm pretty sure they have 7 guys again.
It would be 7.
I think so. It would be Lowry, Martin.
On the second of a back-to-back. Right,
because it would be Lowry, Strus, Martin, Jovic, Highsmith, Orlando Robinson, Jamal Cain.
Right, because they lost Duncan Robinson to the ankle yesterday too.
Right. Yeah. If Adebayo, Dedmon, and Vincent sit, it's the same 7 guys they had the other day.
Wow. I expect Bam to play just because he played yesterday, and I don't believe he picked up a new injury, right?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. So you would think so. But, man, that'll change things a lot. Stick around. Maybe we get that news live before lock. You got Greg and Matt LaMarca taking you up till tip-off. Jordan, we're going to get there. We're at 566. See – yeah, no, you got to do both. You got to do both. The clip is probably only 30 seconds long, right? You got to do both. Okay, yeah, you got to do both. The people have been mobilized. We are at 588. God, what a beautiful thing to just watch that baby climb. 6:01. Look at that. We're there. We got 6 minutes to spare as well. That gets me excited. All right. Anything else from Miami, Adam?
No, just definitely keep an eye on news here because Miami's going to be a good team to roster one way or the other. It's just a matter of exactly how good and which guys.
All right. Appreciate you guys, by the way. That's big right there. Subscribe while you're at it. All right. Let's talk about Minnesota on the flip side of this game. Rudy, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. I'll keep this one quick since we still got one game to go. What are you doing with the Minnesota Timberwolves at big favorites against the shorthanded Heat team?
It's very similar to the Bulls, I think. You're just seeing, Gobert, Towns, Edwards, Russell. These are all guys that on average they cut into each other a bit, but the salaries for the most part have fallen too. I mean, you're getting a sub 9K Karl Anthony Towns on DraftKings now. Edwards only 7,600, Russell 6,100. He's been playing a little bit more as well. Gobert averaging 32 to 33 minutes per game at 6,600. He looks like one of the better centers in that price range. So I really like Gobert, Towns, Edwards. Russell I think is fine in tournaments as well. After that, there's just not much here. I don't think, I don't think this is a slate where I'm going to end up gambling on like Kyle Anderson's minutes all that much. Jaden McDaniels has been playing more, but I just don't really think you need to get there. But I think all of Gobert, Towns, Edwards, Russell look pretty solid. Gobert probably being the one I get to first.
Okay. By the way, I was right. You were talking about the Knicks.
Nice.
Yeah. I just saw the beginning. I can't wait for that. Listen, if you guys don't usually stick around for live before lock, I highly suggest you do so. And watch. Are you going to play it right after this show ends? Yeah. Okay. I'm sticking around to watch that as well. My Utah and the Clippers. Let's wrap this one up. You and I mentioned it earlier in the show, but for anyone that jumped in late, welcome. Number one. Number two, you have no Paul George on the other side. Before we get to this game, I just want to let you guys know the BetMGM no-brainer promo is back, which means that your $10 turns into $200 when you put a pregame moneyline bet on any soccer game or football game in the World Cup. If any team scores a goal, and they don't actually need to, this is just in the wording. So I'm just being completely honest. Every game could end 0-0 and you still get the money anyway. So it's a legitimate no-brainer. Like there's zero risk at all. Use the link in the description or the one Jordan's throwing in the chat. Oh yeah, sorry, matches, Jordan. Stop. Jesus, dude, this guy won't do producer cam. What tries to pull this, but it corrects me on soccer matches. All you have to do is put $10 in at BetMGM. Take that, put it on any pre-line or pre-game money line, and it turns into $200 on the other side. Use it for basketball. Use it for football. Who cares? If BetMGM's available to you, they usually only run these for 2 weeks. Take advantage of it. Very simply put, you could take this $10. You could get the 200, which is going to happen regardless of outcome, as long as you follow the very simple steps using the link down there in the description and chat. You could go on a massive, massive losing streak, lose it all. And the worst case, your downside is $10. Your upside, on the other hand, is who knows? Turn it into 4 or 5 figures after depositing $10. You got a new book to play on. You got oddshopper.com that's entirely free to make the smartest decisions. It's legitimately a no-brainer. BetMGM, check it out. Any pregame money line bet and $10. That's it, baby. All right. Utah, talk to me about the Jazz. Where do you want to go here? Starting with guys like Clarkson and Beasley.
Yeah, I think that there's some value to be had here. We don't know what the starting lineup's going to look like. We do know Mike Conley is out. The last game that he was out was when you saw Colin Sexton basically just start playing a ton of minutes. He started in place of Conley. He played a lot. Last game, we saw Taylor Horton-Tucker sub in for Conley and play a lot of minutes. So maybe Horton-Tucker joins the starting lineup. Maybe it's Sexton. But either way, I expect there to be more minutes available for these guys, and they're both going to look like pretty reasonable value options. Jordan Clarkson at 6,400 potentially plays a little bit more, potentially has the ball in his hands a little bit more. Malik Beasley's been playing a ton as well. Conley being out certainly shouldn't hurt his minutes. Played another 27 on Saturday. So Utah's just got a lot of guys that look good. You know, obviously you can always get to Olynyk and Markkanen and Vanderbilt as well, but I do think that, you know, you're getting some value opening up here with Sexton and with Horton-Tucker.
Is there anybody else you want to get to when it comes to Utah?
All of them. Yeah, I mean, Horton-Tucker and Sexton from a value standpoint, but really like Clarkson. I think Beasley looks pretty good. And then as far as Olynyk, Vanderbilt, Markkanen go, they're all pretty much what they always are, I think. All
right. On the Clippers side, no Paul George. So that's it. No Luke Kennard for whatever that's worth too. Norman Powell, $4,300. Kind of an interesting spot here for old Norman Powell, just given what the rest of this lineup looks like.
Yeah, the problem is that he's just been terrible this year.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, I mean, he has averaged about a fantasy point per minute when he's played without Paul George. Now you do have Kawhi probably playing around 24 minutes, but Powell does lead the team in minutes without George. He does have a 29.5% usage rate without him out there. So yeah, I think, you know, Powell at 4,300, another quality value option. Terrence Mann started the second half last game. I expect that we'll see him start in place of George again. He's only 3,500, so another cheap guy you can get to. He's averaged 0.82 DraftKings points per minute without George out there. So both of those guys, I think, look like pretty solid value options. Ivica Zubac at 6,300, I think is another good center play that isn't getting much ownership. Maybe we see a little bit more Reggie Jackson and John Wall alongside each other. Neither one, I think, is a priority, but 5,100 for Jackson looks decent. So I do like the value pieces. I like Powell, I like Mann, and I like Zubac in tournaments at only 4% ownership.
All right. And yeah, my house is not burning down. I've been quitting smoking, right? So when I'm off camera, once in a while, take a rip of the vape. You know, not on camera, try to be professional here. Sometimes Adam catches me off guard and stops short. It's my fault, not his. But yeah, sometimes I get caught up like that one. I've been good all show though, Jordan. That was bad. All show. Adam caught me off guard. Appreciate you guys as always. Hit the thumbs up before you go. We're almost at 700. Much love to everybody out there who took the time to help us out. Follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Me at Laffy _D, LOUGHY_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. We're going to roll this. We're going to roll the Adam Scherer historic clip. Let's go, baby. All right, guys, good luck tonight. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.
Thibodeau had said that he didn't want Kemba back until Kemba could could play like as a regular player. Shut up, Jordan. Could play like I'm just watching Jordan. He didn't want Kemba back. He didn't want Kemba back until Kemba could play as a starter.
Yo, it's that time of week again where we induct all of you fine people into the Stokastic Hall of Fame and give away a bunch of free memberships to Stokastic Plus Platinum. All you need to do to get up here, to have us brag for you, and to get your free month is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. We got a sexy new avatar up there now too, so make sure to change yours if you haven't yet. And then tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter and win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum when your lineup finishes top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Let's get into it. First up, monster win by Rich Green here. $50,000 on that insanely odd 3-game 10 p.m. tip-off slate for the NBA. Using the tools and projections at Stokastic, we got the takedown as well as 3 other members finishing in the top 10. You love to see it. You also love to see D. Sella with a $50K finish, checking off winning a large field tournament for the first time. Day one of owning the Stokastic Platinum worked out well, to say the least. Big shout out to Adam Scherer, Greg Ehrenberg, Josh Ingeman, and all the others for the daily shows as well. A boatload of knowledge to be had, says D. Sella. And then our boy low budget DFS. What are the odds of having 20 entries with 47,000 field and tying yourself for first place with 2 different lineups? Yeah, I don't know. What I do know is that's awesome. Chop it first with yourself. I noticed too, it's a 2v2 where 2 players in completely different ways totaled 93 fantasy points. So congratulations, man. What a way to take that down. And then EJ, a very simple at Stokastic Hall of Fame $2,000 win. Not sure if that username is G1Z-Man or a cute way of saying Jizz-Man, but either way, nice win, G1Z-Man. Next up, Sotex. Needless to say, had myself a really good night and so close to first, but I'll take it. Thanks to everyone at Stokastic. Good stuff, Sotex with a $1,000 win there. And Brian Walton, love this one. Just got my free month of platinum for an NFL Showdown first place, so he gets it through the Stokastic Hall of Fame. And then he gets a small win in the NBA. Shout out to Stokastic for the best tools and analysts in the business. And then Dave Oliver, thank you guys for the great NHL content. $600 in the hip check and the quarter jukebox. Followed up with Hugh Honey, 420. Say does fourth place count for my front page finish using your projections? Well, you're up here, fellas, so I'd say yes. And then Brandon W, second out of 260K. Thank you, Stokastic Hall of Fame. Remember, all you got to do to get inducted, all you got to do to get your free month, use the avatar at stokastic.com/avatar. Use it anywhere you play and tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame.
What was that? I think you're afraid of the music you made, Jordan. What is going on, guys? Welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock show. If you guys did not do it for the previous guys, do it right now. Like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is Monday night, so just the hour. We're going to be going up to lock. Then we turn it over to the NFL Live Before Lock, so no 30-minute post-lock show. We got a lot of injury news. We're going to be trying to jam it in here, and not just myself, but I'm joined by Matt LaMarca. Still, Eric Lindquist, one more day left on his suspension until he's back in the picture. Matt, what's happening?
Just happy to pick it up when the team needs me. Eric's gotta be more of a team player moving forward, but one man's loss is another man's gain. So hopefully I can get some buckets tonight.
Yeah, and at least for now, by the way, it looks like, Jordan, people are pretty impressed with the music you made in between shows. People are excited about it. If you guys aren't following at Jordan B. Klein on Twitter, you should be, because that's where we really get early first access to all the music he creates. But let's talk about this slate. We've only got 54 minutes here, and there is a ton of injury news. And I think where we should start is by talking about the Golden State Warriors, because this is clearly the overarching most important team on the slate. And while they've already ruled out Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, I find it very weird that Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney are questionable. Like, I don't understand how, number one, it's clearly for rest. So I don't know why they wouldn't just tell us if they're playing or not, or what that decision hangs on. But do you have any read on whether Wiggins or Looney play? Because obviously it has massive implications.
Yeah, I would lean towards they're not going to be available. Just like you said, I don't know why you would rest some guys and not others. They're going to lose either way, I think is my take. They're getting outscored by 15 points per 100 possessions with Curry and Thompson off the floor this season. So just steer into the skid and rest everybody. So I think that's ultimately what happens. We'll see. You never know. Maybe Steve Kerr doesn't want to go full Popovich tonight, but I do think that the way I'm preparing is I'm erring towards those guys being out of the lineup.
Yeah, it's just so weird to me because, once again, I don't understand why they haven't already been ruled out, which kind of makes me think that maybe they're just going to warm up and be like, hey, I feel okay, or maybe I'm really tired from last night. I think that Wiggins and Looney are live to end up playing. One thing that's nice about this game, 8 p.m. start time, there's only 2 games that lock before it, and it's not games that I have a massive amount of exposure to. So for now, I'm just leaving them in. I'm going to have a lot of opportunity to late swap my lineups, because I'm really not all that sure. What I do know, though, is regardless of what ends up happening with those guys, Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga are going to be in a lot of my lineups. Those are going to be the 2 highest priority Warriors for me. Is it the same for you? And is there anybody else from Golden State that you really want to get to as of now?
Those are my 2 highest owned guys. The one thing I will say is that Kuminga scares me just a smidge. For some reason, his fantasy production has just fallen off a cliff. Like last year as a rookie, he was a guy that when he saw the floor, he was well over a fantasy point per minute. This year, he's down at under 0.7 DraftKings points per minute. So the fact that he is going to be like mega chalk does worry me a little bit, but he's so cheap and he figures to play 30 minutes kind of regardless of who else is in or out, that even if he is a mediocre per minute guy, like he can get to 20, 25 fantasy points, I think pretty easily. So I would imagine I'm going to be a little bit underweight to Kuminga compared to the rest of the field, but certainly he's somebody you need to have exposure to.
And then one other point on the Warriors. If you had to pick out one guy to be a good value play that's a little more contrarian from the Warriors. So obviously Jonathan Kuminga, Jordan Poole, they're really popular, but I think for good reason. The other day, you and I are doing the show together on Saturday. Somebody's calling me a chalk donkey for liking the Heat and for liking, I'm trying to remember, the Heat and the Magic in that spot where everybody was out for them.
Yep.
I think those were the games. But either way, there was tremendous value that I think was obvious. I feel the same way about Jordan Poole today. He's very difficult to avoid. If Kuminga's starting, very, very difficult to avoid. But are there any less popular Warriors players that you think really could stand out? Because outside of those 2 guys, nobody else is projected for more than 15% ownership on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, outside of those guys, we got Wiggins at 23%. But if he was to be ruled out, the next most popular player, then you got Looney at 14%. So there aren't other value plays from the Warriors that are really picking up any ownership. Who's the next guy that people should look to if they want to get a value play from the Warriors that's just not crazy popular?
I think there are a few. I mean, I think Moses Moody's going to play plenty of minutes tonight. He's not the best per minute guy, but again, I think he could get to 30 minutes in this game at the minimum. Dante DiVincenzo, maybe not quite as much playing time, but a better per minute player. I think Anthony Lamb is a potential option tonight. So like, especially if Wiggins and or Looney gets ruled out, then you can just fire up basically whoever's left. But even if those guys are in, I still think there's opportunity. J. Michael Green, you could play him at 3,100, I think, for sure.
Yeah, especially if he ends up starting in place of Looney, which is definitely a possibility. James Wiseman isn't on the team right now. Something else to keep in mind is there was a point where Wiseman, they were forcing him minutes to try to get him, NBA ready, NBA experience. And it just went so poorly at the beginning. They're like, we can't deal with Wiseman anymore. Send him down to the G League. And that does set up JaMychal Green in a better situation. Should we see Looney ruled out, or JaMychal Green might even start in the front court alongside Looney. That's also a possibility. And there was somebody who brought up in the YouTube chat, and it was a point that Adam had made earlier. Apparently Looney's has some, I think he's the longest consecutive game streak of anybody played in the NBA. He almost never misses games. So maybe that's something also that's a possibility here. But the Warriors, I feel like we wrapped it up pretty well. Let's start to hit on some of the questions that we're getting in Discord. And by the way, if you guys don't have access to our Discord, one of the perks having a Stokastic Plus Platinum membership, you sign up, you get access to the Discord channel. Now, first off, our guy Seth, always one of the first with the questions. A favorite of yours, Matt. A favorite of mine.
Here we go.
Lofty doesn't like him.
What's
but
his
Lofty
wife
can
and
go
his
fuck
boyfriend
himself.
up to today?
All right. So Seth, as I was baking oatmeal cookies for my wife's boyfriend, I asked what he was doing tonight, and he yelled, Kuminga. Wouldn't you rather get to the Oklahoma City value? No, not as of right now. So I don't even know exactly which OKC players you'd be prioritizing over Kuminga, because to me, like what cheap guy are we dying to play from OKC?
I mean, I'll have some interest in Jeremiah Robinson Earl at 3,600, coming off basically his best game of the season, but the Thunder might not low key be that thin, right? They've upgraded Trey Mann to questionable. Darius Baisley's questionable. The only guys that are out that have been like a significant part of their rotation, really the only guy is Pokusevski. And even he is not a guy who is in there starting like every night. They have had a different starting lineup basically every game this year, which is maddening, but it is what it is. I think that, JRE is somebody to play, but I don't think he's nearly on the same level as the Golden State value.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And by the way, Seth, this is why you're baking cookies for him and he's not baking cookies for you, because Kuminga is the guy to go to here. That's the real takeaway here. Kuminga is my favorite value play on the slate. He's going to be extremely popular, but as long as he starts, I'm viewing him as pretty close to a free square, particularly on DraftKings today. So I say play the chalk in Jonathan Kuminga. The next super chat that we have is from our guy, Michael McKinney. He is his usual cash question. FanDuel cash, who are the 5 must plays? Okay, so let me pull up the FanDuel lineups I've built and see who ended up coming up most frequently. One of them, once again, is going to be Kuminga. I think Kuminga is somebody we definitely want to get to in FanDuel cash games. Mo Bamba is going to be another one for me. Once again, Wendell Carter Jr. is out. Mo Bamba is going to be starting at center. So that's somebody else who makes a whole lot of sense. As far as other must plays at cash on FanDuel, though, see, one thing that kind of makes it hard, Jordan Poole is another one for sure. So I would say Kuminga, Poole, Bamba at center. Marcus Morris would be another one for me, and Jordan Clarkson. I'll have those as my 5. So Kuminga and Poole, it's because of all the players that are resting for the Warriors. Pretty straightforward there. Jordan Clarkson is because Mike Conley is out. Marcus Morris is because of the absence of Paul George, and then Mo Bamba because he's going to be starting at center. Does that all make sense to you? And is there anybody else you would add to that mix? We usually just say building Michael's full lineup for him here.
That makes sense. I think that for sure we're in the same boat with Kuminga, Poole, and Bamba. I think those are the 3 best per dollar options on FanDuel. I'll add in Franz Wagner. He's 7,100. I really like this spot for the Orlando guys going against the Pacers. I mean, I liked it when they played on, was it Saturday? And, a lot of fantasy value in that game. It's the same matchup. They have the same absences. Wagner has led the team in usage with Cole Anthony and with Paolo Banchero off the floor this season. I think 7,100 is still too cheap for him. And then I might lean Terrence Mann over Marcus Morris just because Terrence Mann is so cheap, but you might not necessarily need those savings. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I mean, there's a lot of players that I think are pretty strong looking cash options now. I don't have an issue with anybody that you said right there. And then there could be more that opens up as we get more injury news, because we've got right now still listed as questionable all the Miami guys. Bam Adebayo's questionable, Gabe Vincent, Dwayne Dedmon's questionable. Got other injury scenarios too that we haven't hit on. We're going to talk about the Jazz in a second and the Clippers as well. But we've also got a question here to answer from Late Night Hammer, who says, with New Orleans being 10-point favorites, who do you think closes at the 5 for the Pelicans? More often than not, they've closed with Larry Nance. Sometimes it's Valanciunas. Ultimately, though, it does seem like it's pretty close to a time split between the two of them. And then whoever plays better, they'll ride with a little bit more. But more often than not, it's been Nance that closes. It's hard to trust either of them in large field tournaments just because, honestly, like this, there's so much value. And it's really hard to confidently say what the minutes are going to be.
Yeah, and I don't know if there might be a chance that neither of them closes, because, again, I don't see this game as being particularly close.
Yeah, they are 10-point favorites. By the way, we just found out that Zion Williamson will play today. So yeah, with all the players that are resting for the Warriors, very live. The Pelicans just absolutely obliterate them. And then the closer might actually be, let me look, who's at the end of their bench.
They still got Willie Hernangomez.
Let's see. At the end of the bench, it could be Willie Hernangomez or Jackson Hayes closing at the 5.
Right.
Very possible. Trey Murphy's also questionable for them, but wouldn't have that much impact on that. DC24 super chat, we appreciate you. Wants to know Suggs or Russell on DK, and thanks. So for me, that is Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Jalen Suggs right now with the way that this Orlando roster or lineup, all the injuries are piling up for them. He's gotten, 35 plus now in 3 straight games, 2 of them over 40. I don't think he's been priced up nearly enough, and it's a great matchup. So for me, it's pretty easily Suggs. I mean, Russell, we talked about it last time. He can pop off for a random, 50, 60 point game every now and then, but I think Suggs is the more consistent option and will finish with the higher fantasy points more times than not.
I really like this question we got from Jets World, because he's thinking about the different injury scenarios and what could happen with players in the Magic game and how they would look if we were to get more players ruled out after locks. We want to say, if Golden State and OKC news is not out before lock, is Bamba a core play for DK Cash? For me, that's a yes. To me, I would still be playing Bamba in cash games. I expect him to be really popular. And as for the OKC news, I don't think anybody here is. So Trey Mann is questionable. Darius Bazley is questionable. Isaiah Joe is questionable. To me, none of those guys being out would mean that we have like a must play cash type player. I would still prefer Mo Bamba over any of the OKC guys. So I would say Kevin Love will play today. To me, play Mo Bamba in cash today.
And the one thing I'll say, like for me, the only guy that I would want to play in cash from the Thunder is SGA. And he's going to be pretty much non-affected by any of those injuries. I think SGA might be the best stud option on the slate. So if you wanted to, I don't think you need to worry about the Thunder news to feel good about playing him.
Yeah. And once again, it's not like SGA or Josh Giddey are questionable. It's Darius Bazley. It's Trey Mann. The guys who are in the rotation, but it's not players who are overhauling projections in the same way as Wendell Carter Jr. being out or the Warriors. By the way, as I'm saying that, we just got news on OKC anyway. They're all playing. So the whole question now totally becomes irrelevant. Isaiah Joe, available to play. Trey Mann, available to play. Darius Bazley, questionable, available to play. They were all questionable. Now they're in. So that all goes by the wayside anyway. The next question that we got in here was from... here it was. A pawnage method. Kawhi Leonard, 31% projected ownership for FanDuel on a minutes limit. WTF. So when it comes to Kawhi Leonard, you had a really good take on Kawhi the other day. It makes sense that he would project well on a points per dollar basis, especially now that Paul George is out and we're seeing him be a little bit cheap. What's the upside for Kawhi Leonard, though? And he's not going to play 35 minutes. He could go out and play 26. He could play 27. Is he going to score 50 fantasy points in those minutes? It's pretty unlikely. So in terms of points per dollar play, I get why he projects fairly decently. He's Kawhi Leonard. He's a really good player. We all know that. I do question the upside in large field tournaments, and that's why, for me, I would rather be a little bit underweight to the field. This is something I'm kind of echoing thoughts that Matt already brought us on Saturday when we did a similar slate together. Has anything changed for you about Kawhi Leonard for today as opposed to Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a better spot because he's $600 cheaper than he was, and now you're taking Paul George out of the equation. So I can get behind it a little bit more, but again, we were anticipating that he could potentially see a spike in minutes or a slight increase in minutes, and he played less than he did the game prior. So I think projecting him for anything more than like 24, 25 minutes is aggressive. And I don't see a ton of upside, even with Paul George out in that much playing time. So I'm going to be well under the 30 projected % ownership.
Yeah, and if you're playing a lineup and you got a last man, or even for cash games because he's so popular, if you want to plug Kawhi Leonard in, he's going to be popular. I don't have an issue with that. It's in large field tournaments. I'd rather be underweight to it just because I think there's potential for other guys to put up better results just relative to his minutes restriction. Kawhi Leonard so far this year to pull out, and by the way, Kawhi hasn't even played that well to this point. And
0.98 fantasy points per minute on FanDuel. So Pretty average.
Kawhi this year is playing 22 minutes per game. In those minutes, he's putting up 10.5 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists per game. And last game, he played 22 minutes last game. The most he has played all year is 25 minutes. I thought there was a chance last game he'd go from 25 minutes maybe to 26 or 27. I get last game was a blowout. They might just hold him to 24, 25 minutes. So to me, I think the ownership's a little bit too much. I like where your head is at there, Pawnage Method, because I do think it's a little bit too much for him in tournaments, just considering that minutes restriction. Now, let's talk about the other big injury situation that we've not hit on in terms of questionable players, and that's for Miami. Bam Adebayo is questionable. Gabe Vincent's questionable. Team. Oh, sorry, what was that?
I hate this team so much.
It's the worst. And I mean, Jimmy Butler is always hurt. We know he's weak. We know I could beat him up in a fight. But it's these other players too, just constantly on the injury report. And here's the other thing that's annoying as well. Before the season started, I know this team fucks with injury reports. I'm going to mute Nikola Jovic on Twitter because I know there's going to be a time where I see Jovic questionable. I get confused and I place a dumb bet. And now he matters. So I can't even do that anymore because I need information on him. But Bam's questionable. Vincent's questionable. Dedmon's questionable. The players that are out for this team, Jimmy Butler, Udonis Haslem, Tyler Hero, Victor Oladipo, Duncan Robinson, Omer Yurtseven. If there's no Dedmon, Vincent, or Adebayo, we're back in the situation where there's like 7 rotation players for the Heat. Now, we just saw Bam Adebayo play, so I would think he's a little bit more likely to play than not, but maybe not. It's the tail end of a back-to-back and he missed time. Do you have any real clear read on Miami here? Because this could be a team that's also just really shorthanded in the front court again.
Yeah. I'm expecting Bam to play. I'll put it this way. Like, I would have been surprised if he was not listed on the Heat's injury report today, because that's just their MO. Every player is questionable all the time for the most part. So I am tentatively expecting him to be in there. And that does make the rest of the team less appealing from a fantasy perspective. I think if Bam plays, he's their best guy. I mean, he had a over 30% usage rate and assist rate in their last game. I think that gives him the most fantasy upside. All these other guys are priced up a little bit. So for me, Bam, if he's in, he's really the only guy on this team that I'm looking at. If he's out, then we can start going back to some of these other options.
And by the way, I love Bam today. He's one of my favorite tournament options because I think there is potential for him to play a massive role. And because he is listed as questionable on the injury report, I have a feeling he's not going to be all that popular in tournaments. Right now, we have him projected for 12% ownership over on DK. FanDuel, where he's power forward and center eligible, he's projected for 13% ownership. You consider all the guys that are out for the Heat, especially the high usage guys I mentioned before. Tyler Hero out and Jimmy Butler out. A lot of the offense goes through Bam if he's healthy and good to play. And he's just not going to be owned that way because of the questionable status. If he had no injury designation, obviously that's a big difference. He would probably be one of the most popular players on the slate. Like, we'd be looking at Bam right now being 30% owned, maybe 35% owned on FanDuel, where he has multi-position eligibility. I love getting to Bam. If he ends up being ruled out, cool, I'll late swap. I'm going to have the ability to do it. There's so many games that are clustered at 8 o'clock. I have a lot of exposure to the Warriors. It's fine with me to leave him in my lineups and then just adjust if something different breaks, because I think he's points per dollar, one of the better plays of the day.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think that people are going to look at the game log. They're going to see he played 27 in the last game, plus the questionable tag, plus the fact that he missed the 2 games prior. And like you said, they're not going to feel good about it. They're going to think that even if he's active, he might be limited, but he only missed 2 games. I really think the only reason he played 27 minutes.
Just have a couple times now while we're talking about the injury, he gets ruled in. So sorry to cut you off, but Bam Adebayo on track to play. Dwayne Dedmon on track to play. Gabe Vincent is out tonight. So Adebayo in. I'm happy I don't have to adjust anything for that. Does Gabe Vincent being out really change anything significantly for you?
I mean, you can look to like Caleb Martin, maybe. He should still continue to play like all the minutes that he can handle. Kyle Lowry is too expensive for me at the moment at 7,200. So even though, Vincent is technically like kind of their backup point guard, it doesn't make me more inclined to play Kyle Lowry. Really, for me, this team is Bam, maybe a little bit of Caleb Martin, and probably some Nikola Jovic.
So for me, the key about this also, there's a lot of players that are already out. There's a lot of value on the slate. And Strus, Martin, Lowry, these guys are already priced up. So if you get to some of them in lineups, cool. I'm not going to prioritize any of them though, just because they've already been priced for the scenario. This isn't Caleb Martin at 4,500 anymore. It's not Max Strus at 52 or whatever it was the other day. With these guys being $1,000 or so more expensive, it's just much less appealing of an option, particularly when we have so much value elsewhere. So I don't really think this is going to change all that much for me.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right. In terms of injury news, the only other spot that we haven't hit on yet is the Mike Conley one. Conley has officially been ruled out today. And with him out of the picture, are there any value plays that really stand out to you? Because I think there's reason to consider somebody like Taylor Horton-Tucker. He's in some of my lineups. But one thing that does make this situation less of a priority, where I'm getting to Jordan Clarkson, I get to THT, I like the value play so much better from Golden State that nothing from Utah pops up, crazy significantly for me. But is there anything I'm missing out on that I should be playing a lot of from Utah?
If we knew, the thing with, I wish I knew that I could pencil in Malik Beasley for 30 minutes or I could pencil in Colin Sexton for 30 minutes. Because if one of those guys was to get a big spike, they would be very appealing at their price tags. I'm playing both of them. But I don't think I'm with you that the Golden State value just on the surface looks a little bit better. I will say that I think Beasley and Sexton both have ceilings for their price tags. Beasley has been incredibly good of late.
Yeah.
He's playing plenty of minutes for this team and he's been, right around a fantasy point per minute. So, I'm definitely building in some Beasley and some Sexton to go with Clarkson and Taylor Horton-Tucker. But I don't think that, we're taking one player out of the rotation as opposed to Golden State where we're taking out a minimum of 3.
And here's the other thing too. I'm with Sexton, Beasley. I like these guys. If they were to get more minutes, I'd be like, oh, cool. 30 plus for these guys. They look great. I think Taylor Horton-Tucker starts and he's the worst player of the 3. Because that's what in the second half of last game, it was THT who started the second half.
Yep.
He played a bunch of minutes. So I just think it's other guys getting the minutes allocated. I don't think it's all of a sudden one guy plays 34 minutes. I think it kind of gets spread out amongst a bunch of guys. That's the thing that makes it to guys like, hey, THT, Beasley, I'll get to these guys in 10-ish% of lineups or so, maybe 15. But there's nobody who all of a sudden becomes oh, this is the guy for me.
Yeah, and I definitely have some THT, a good bit of THT, but I do think that it's kind of trappy. You look at his numbers, right? He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute this season. So if he starts, the expectation is to give him, 30 minutes, and then he looks really good at 3,700. But Taylor Horton-Tucker, when he's playing limited minutes off the bench, is not the same player as Taylor Horton-Tucker when he starts and is playing alongside other actual NBA players. We saw that when he was in Los Angeles. So I would be just a little bit hesitant about saying oh, this guy is an absolute smash at 3,700. He's still a good value play. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think he is quite as good as his current numbers suggest he is.
Yeah, we just got some Knicks news. Going to hit on that in a second. We got a super chat there from Teddy Wayman, I see. But first, let me tell you guys the easiest way to make money today. It's not going to be in DFS. We're always doing our best to give you guys the best value possible. But Kevon Looney just upgraded to probable. But we have a deal right now with BetMGM where if you sign up clicking on the link that we have over at BetMGM and you place a $5 money line bet on any soccer game, it's going to pay out $200. Now, the language of the promo is a little bit confusing. It says if any team scores a goal, but what it actually means if any team scores a goal throughout the tournament. And they have told us that no matter what, they're paying out $200 on that $5 bet. So all you have to do is sign up at BetMGM, click on the link that we have in the description box. Jordan's going to be throwing it into the YouTube chat. You sign up at BetMGM, you make a new account, $5 bet on a soccer money line, it's going to turn into $200. It is as easy as that. So if you don't have a BetMGM account, and if you want some free money, take advantage of the opportunity. So once again, we just got some news. By the way, Deadman now available to play, and Adebayo also listen. What's this nonsense? Really tell us on track to play, then 3 minutes later they're available. You couldn't just give
the
us
Heat, man.
Before.
They just need the attention all the time.
Total nonsense.
They're the true Jordan Kleins of the NBA.
Jordan might be the person who least wants attention. Jordan, who just refuses to be on camera these days. And even he looks all pretty. He got a new haircut to not be on camera. But either way, Jordan Jordan, you should want to be seen with your new haircut. Let's hit on some of this other news that just came through. The Knicks news that came out. We got Derrick Rose is out and Cam Reddish also being out. This potentially opens up a little bit of extra playing time in the backcourt for the Knicks. But is there anybody that you'd want to get to with any kind of real significance now with both these guys being out? And by the way, I should mention that Mitchell Robinson off the injury report, so he will be back in the mix for the Knicks. And we don't have to deal with this nonsense front court scenario that Tibbs has. Backcourt, though, no Reddish, no Derrick Rose. Does anybody benefit enough for you to want to play them?
Yeah, Quentin Grimes for sure. He started on Sunday. He played 32 minutes. He did a little bit of everything, 10 points, 5 boards, 8 assists. I think he becomes a nice pivot at the minimum, right? He's still min priced on DraftKings. If he gets back to that 30 minutes, I think he's a very strong play at 3K. I think RJ Barrett is usable. He's not a standout at 6,100, but I think he's fine. But for me, Grimes is the priority.
It is going to be Emmanuel Quickly for me. I think that he's a good pivot off of some of the other cheap value plays we have. And I think Quickly is legitimately good. A player with a lot of upside. Now, streaky for sure and a little bit scoring dependent. But we've seen these games where Quickly goes out and he just hits a lot of shots and scores a bunch in a hurry. And the way that Tibbs runs his rotations, he's cool with playing the hot hand. I understand wanting to play Quentin Grimes like you just said, but Quickly has more upside. And I think he's probably not, we'll see once the ownership gets updated. But Andrew Wiggins just ruled out, so we'll talk on that in a second. But I don't think Quickly is going to be all that popular today.
Yeah, I think that's fine. The one thing I will say is that Tibbs doesn't trust him to play more than like 27, 28 minutes. And Quickly can do a lot of damage in that much playing time. But I just feel a little bit safer with Quentin Grimes, and he showed a decent ceiling in his last game. So maybe that's the best we'll get out of him, because he hasn't been a very good per minute producer for the year. But given what he did in that last game, I feel like he has a bit of upside at 3K.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the Knicks starting lineup is. I do presume that it's going to be Quentin Grimes in there. Also, Shaedon Sharpe will be starting for the Blazers today in place of Damian Lillard. But let's talk about the Warriors now, because Kevon Looney has officially been ruled in while Andrew Wiggins has been ruled out. Is there any concern, though, that Looney is just kind of playing to keep his Iron Man streak going and is not going to get a full allotment of minutes?
I mean, what's a full allotment of minutes for Kevon Looney, right? Like 25? I think he'll play 25 tonight, something like that. But is that enough for him to be viable at 4,500 on a slate where we have a ton of value already? Not really, not in my eyes. Like he's 4,500 and you can get Mo Bamba for 5,800. To me, that's like a no-brainer. You find the extra 1,300.
Let's see. So Looney this year. So, I mean, the difference is a full allotment of minutes for Looney could mean more on this game than it would on other games, just because there's so many players out for the Warriors. I want to see the last time they rested everybody. How many minutes did he play in that spot? Like, I think that's the good barometer, because we've seen this before. The Warriors hold a bunch of guys out. It was, it's funny. It was against the same Pelicans team. Yeah, I'm concerned about Looney's minutes. So the last time they did this, we saw a game literally the exact same scenario. The last time they rested everybody was against the Pelicans. There was no Curry, there was no Clay, there was no Draymond Green, there was no Wiggins, and Looney started and played 24 minutes. Going to make it hard for me to want to play him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very reasonable expectation. That game log from that game is very interesting, because you have Jordan Poole. He led the team with 38.5 minutes. Kuminga got to almost 38. Anthony Lamb played 37. Moses Moody played 32. And Ty Jerome played 31.5 off the bench. So those would be the 5 guys that I would prioritize. The big difference, James Wiseman, he only played 16.5 minutes in that game. Maybe you just give those all to J. Michael Green this time around, because he played less than 10 minutes. Other than that seems like a pretty reasonable breakdown of where the minutes are going to go.
Yeah, and then that we just also got news that Wiggins is ruled out. What are the other players that are really going to be benefiting from the Warriors?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody sees like a huge boost. I mean, Jordan Poole can't do everything, so other people are gonna have to shoot the ball a little bit. Like I guess Dante DiVincenzo was out that last game as well, so we have to throw him into the equation as well. Sure. But yeah, I think it's pretty much the same cast of characters. You can just, I think, go a little bit deeper down the list this time. You know, you can throw in DiVincenzo, Lamb, Jerome, like you can throw those guys in, I think, as low ownership type tournament plays.
Yeah, and we're gonna get an ownership update too. Like, there's a lot of news that's come in, so it's one of those things where it's hey, we got a fresh ownership update, but it's not including the news that came out 2 minutes ago. Well, let's see. So ownership update from 27 seconds ago. Maybe this is actually including Wiggins being out. Refreshing the page, and we'll see what comes up. And I'll see if Wiggins is out, or so Wiggins is still in. The next ownership update without Wiggins, I'll ask Jordan to share it on the screen, and we'll go over some of the Warriors ownership. But at least for now. Oh, yeah,
I just ran a queue with Steph, Clay, Wiggins, and Draymond off the floor. How many players on the Warriors do you think average more than a fantasy point per minute in that scenario?
I would say Jordan Poole. And that I mean, so it's going to be hard because there could be guys that pop up in weird small sample sizes. Everybody else on the team is generally a bad points per minute fantasy producer. The safe answer is Poole.
Poole is actually slightly below. The only guy who's slightly above is James Wiseman. So these guys, I think, are going to have to do it more through volume than efficiency. And they should get plenty of volume. Like, they're pretty blowout proof with how few guys are on the team at the moment. But like, I don't know if I want to play 4 of these dudes together. You know what I'm saying?
They're so cheap though that I don't like, I could still, I don't, 4 might be a little bit extreme. But at the same time too, is it crazy to think Kuminga scores 20 fantasy points, Poole scores 40, and then like Moody scores 25? It doesn't take that much. They don't even need to be points from fantasy producers to pay off value.
So I think we're seeing an expected starting lineup. Poole, DiVincenzo, Lamb, Kuminga, and Looney. That probably vaults DiVincenzo over Moses Moody for me. And I think Anthony Lamb becomes a pretty good option at 3,400.
For cash games, how many of these guys should we be playing? Because my gut feeling for cash games is Poole, DiVincenzo, Lamb, and Kuminga should all be in there.
Poole, DiVincenzo, Lamb, and Kuminga. That might be too much for me. I think Poole and Kuminga definitely, but like if we get, so you take the savings with Lamb and DiVincenzo, what are you doing with the rest of the money?
Yeah. So
are you paying up for Giannis?
Giannis, yes. Let me pull up all of my players being projected. So Giannis, yes. SGA and probably Halliburton would all end up in a cash game lineup, I would assume. Something along those lines. At least two out of the 3.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good looking lineup.
I have by the way, all of those guys I have projected. Giannis is obviously very expensive. I don't have him projected for like 65 fantasy points to make a good points per dollar play, but he wouldn't be all that difficult to get up to. I have SGA projected for over 50 fantasy points. I have Halliburton projected for close to 50. So I don't think either of them are bad points per dollar plays by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I think they're good points per dollar plays. And obviously the guys on the Warriors are going to be better points per dollar plays than most of the mid-range plays. So I would be playing those 4 guys, Poole, DiVincenzo, Lamb, and Kuminga in a cash game.
We'll see what the projections look like after we update them. I might be more inclined to go with some of those mid-range guys. Like we talked about Mo Bamba. Like I kind of want to have him in there. Talked about like a Jalen Suggs or a Mo Wagner. Like I might want to get some more. Like I just don't know if I want to play 3 punt plays from Golden State because I just don't know if Giannis only gets 50, I think that I think that the balanced approach might be a little bit better. We'll see. We'll see what the projections look like. The fact that Giannis has been playing so poorly might be clouding my judgment a little bit. Like, we obviously know that Giannis has 75 in his bag every single time he takes the floor, but it's been a while since we've seen it. It sure would be nice if he brought it out and showed everybody that he still had it.
Do you think he's totally healthy right now?
I have concerns. I mean, he hasn't looked like he's completely healthy. So, he's not making free throws again, which is another kind of step backwards for him. But you look at the usage rate, it's still there. So maybe we should just be jamming in Giannis with all the value. Maybe that is the way to go.
Yeah, and once again, we'll have ownership projections coming in shortly, but we got some super chats piling up here. First from Teddy Wayman. What are your thoughts on Morris playing without Paul George? I like Morris. I liked him a lot more before all this other value opened up for sure, but Marcus Morris to me is somebody who is going to be my player pool, but not one of my most rostered players.
I think that's fair.
Jorge Jacomi, am I missing something, or why Kuminga is projected for 50% ownership? He's terrible on a fantasy points per minute basis, if I'm not mistaken. What are your thoughts? Everybody's out for the Warriors. Somebody else has to take shots. A lot of those are going to go to Kuminga, and he's really cheap. So now if we're expecting Kuminga to play 32 to 34 minutes and be somewhere in the neighborhood of a points per minute fantasy producer without those guys on the court, you're still looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 fantasy points for him. He's hard to avoid entirely.
Yeah, the last time all these dudes sat, he got to 31 DraftKings points. So I see what you're saying. The fantasy points per minute this year don't look great, but we're not talking over a very big sample size. And what we saw out of him last year, and when given an opportunity so far this year, I still think he's a pretty good per minute dude.
My filler arc, Nance and Lamb or Looney and Kuminga? Well, I don't really like getting to Nance on this slate. So to me, of all the players starting for the Warriors, Looney's by far my least favorite.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm not playing Looney tonight. He's not in my player pool.
I'm not playing Nance either, which makes this really hard. I'll rebuild my filler arc. Kuminga and Lamb are certainly good value plays. I don't think you really need to get to Nance or Looney at this point. Legary and Bridgewater, what Magic guys are must-haves for cash on DK? My favorite cash game play is Mo Bamba. I wouldn't consider him a must-play in cash, but he's the one that I think is the most cash viable. Don't have to play him, but I definitely like him.
He's not a must-play anymore, right? We started the show by saying he was a cash game guy that we both really liked. He is not a necessity anymore.
All right, let's see if the ownership has been rerun yet. And have we gotten any more? And by the way, the other issue with Nance today, I don't, if he closes a lot of games, that might not be a turn the rotation even gets anymore. If this game's a blowout, considering who's playing for the Warriors today, it's just a spot where it might not be needed. Eddie Sedja wants to know how many Golden State guys in a DK GPP where you would start. Thanks, guys. 4. I think 4 is viable.
4 is fine. I would cap it at 4, and I would probably want to have 3, all things considered, but 4 is fine if that pops up.
Refreshing the ownership to see if we've got 53 seconds ago. Let's see if this has got the new Warriors guys in there. 53 seconds ago, but it is not quite yet updated for Wiggins being out. We do have Quentin Grimes, the Knicks situation that's been updated. Quentin Grimes is projected for 20% ownership on DK right now. On FanDuel, he is projected for 12, but I have a feeling that number is going to come down once we get some of the updates from the Warriors guys. So I know for me, just based on some of my initial projections I'm looking at, I am going to be playing a lot of Anthony Lamb for sure.
Yeah, in the updated projections now, like there are 5 Warriors that are leading the slate in terms of value, followed by Quentin Grimes. If you wanted to swap somebody like DiVincenzo or Moody for Quentin Grimes, I might prefer that just because you're kind of diversifying just a little bit. But For sure, like the Warriors are just an unavoidable situation at this point.
Everybody's out for them and everybody's cheap. The only one that's avoidable to me is Looney.
Yes.
The other ones, especially the starters, I think we should be going towards. Here's one thing though. Now that we know the starting lineup and we don't have the ownership updates quite yet, but I'm making a leap of faith and assuming Lamb is going to be super popular, Kuminga is going to be super popular, DiVincenzo is going to be popular to a lesser extent. Should any of these bench guys be getting looked at as being somewhat of a contrarian or leverage play in tournaments?
We'll see what Ty Jerome's ownership projection comes in at. I think he could still see a solid amount of minutes off the bench. I think that Moses Moody should play a good handful of minutes. So I would say if those guys' ownerships are checking in, sub 20%, sub 15%, then yeah, they would be players I'd be considering.
All right. I'm rerunning my lineups now. And how are you doing on your lineups, by the way?
I'm getting there.
Okay. Because I was going to say LeBron James question for tomorrow. Nobody cares. Don't give me, we got other things to worry about for today's slate. Because I would like to, because a lot of news has come in over the course of the slate. So I would like to try to recap and just give the people who it is that we have the most exposure to at different positions. So I'm going to run my lineups. But first, shout out to No House Advantage. And hopefully by the time that we talk about No House Advantage, knowing this, my lineup should be done running in the background. And then we could really hit on some of the players that we're getting the most exposure to. But NHA, the sponsor of today's show, if you guys haven't signed up there, click on the link that's below in the description box. Also about to be thrown into the YouTube chat. Get up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit when you sign up at NHA using our link. And there's a couple of reasons to play there. First, sign up bonus. That's always nice to get some free money. They've had a ton of overlay this year. Pretty frequently, the contests for NHA are only filling up halfway, a third of the way. Nearly every single person that's playing on NHA cashing and making money in those tournaments. But also, they've got a new way that you could play props against the house over on NHA. So if you're in a state that doesn't have sports betting, this is a different way to get exposure to. You sign up at NHA and you can play some player props against the house over there. Sign up at NHA, click on the link that we have below or the link that's in the YouTube chat right now and sign up over there. Let's see. All right. No more injury news came in. I think that we are good on super chats right now. I'm going to refresh the ownership one more time to see if anything has changed there. It looks like my lineups are done running, so I could have some information on that as well. No new ownership yet for the Warriors guys, but who does it look like you're going to be getting some of the most exposure to now that we've got the dust settled a little bit? Because for me, it looks like a lot of Warriors guys, Poole, Lamb, Kuminga, DiVincenzo popping up in a whole bunch of lineups as far as pay up options. So here's actually what I think I'd end up doing in cash game. Now that I have some of my highest projected lineups at, it would not be Giannis for me, Matt. In cash games, these are the pay up options I would be getting to most frequently with all the Warriors guys. It would actually be Tatum, Halliburton, and SGA. Those are the ones that would pop up most frequently for me.
Tatum, Halliburton, and SGA. All right, that's fair. I think that's a pretty solid build. I ended up with primarily, man, all my things are bugging out now. I also have a ton of Warriors in my lineups. I mean, no shock there, but I ended up with at least 3 Warriors in more than I would have expected. It's just so hard not to take the value when it's presented to you. So I have like 80% Kuminga, and over 50% on DiVincenzo and Anthony Lamb to go with Jordan Poole as well. So
my 4 most rostered players are Poole, Lamb, Kuminga, and DiVincenzo. I mean, I ended up with a lot of Franz Wagner just because I guess small forward might be just kind of like a brutal position today. So Tatum is small forward eligible, but I ended up with a lot of Franz. But yes, other than that, those 4 guys are my 4 highest. Yeah. And then once again, my most rostered pay up options are Tatum, Halliburton, and SGA. Who are your 3 most rostered pay up options? We have an abundance of value. Who are you using the extra salary on most frequently?
SGA and Halliburton are the clear top 2. And then it's kind of, I don't really have a clear number 3. It's kind of then spread out between Giannis, Tatum, Bam a little bit, Karl Anthony Towns. Like, I don't have a set number 3 right now after the 2 point guards.
And then let's go also, if we're just going position by position here. So for me, when we're talking about point guards, the ones I got to the most are Poole. DiVincenzo having point guard eligibility on DraftKings is very bizarre to me, but either way, Poole, DiVincenzo, those are my most rostered. I guess I'll say them at shooting guard as well. Just guards overall. Poole, DiVincenzo, Halliburton, SGA. Those are my most rostered guards. Anything different for you with your guard spots?
I'll throw in Quentin Grimes. I ended up with a pretty good bit of Quentin Grimes.
And then as far as forwards go, the forwards that I'm getting the most exposure to are Tatum, Lamb, Kuminga, and then to a lesser extent, Norman Powell.
Yeah, I have Norm. I have Talen Horton-Tucker. I have Franz Wagner. I have Giannis. Like, forward, I'm kind of spreading it out a little bit more.
It definitely doesn't have, other than Kuminga and Lamb, it doesn't have quite as many plays that I think are just, smash plays like we've seen at the guard spot. And then for me at center, I still love getting to Bam Adebayo. He's somebody I'm getting a lot of. And then Mo Bamba, to a lesser extent, just other value opened up. I still get to a good amount of Bamba, but other players a little bit frequently. And then behind him, I'm a little bit spread out at center. But Adebayo, and Kuminga technically does have center eligibility on DraftKings, but outside of him, Adebayo is the center I get the most exposure to. For you, who are your most rostered centers?
Yeah, I mean, Kuminga and Giannis, they have center eligibility. I'm not really counting them. Bamba, Gobert, Bam, and I have Nikola Jovic. He's still in my projections, grades out pretty well from a value perspective, and could end up being kind of an afterthought here.
Is there anybody you got to that you were not expecting to when you ran your lineups, that you were like, oh, this guy projects better or ends up in more lineups than I otherwise would have thought?
I didn't think I was going to get nearly as much Kyle Lowry as I did. I had a nice hand. I'm toning that down as we speak, but Kyle Lowry is somebody that's popping because he might play 38 minutes tonight. And like they're just so banged up. The Heat to me now are potentially being an overlooked team. They went from a team that might have been the chalk, if not for this whole Warriors thing, to now, like, they might not catch any ownership at all.
I wouldn't say none at all, but definitely less than I think we would. Like, especially relative to a week ago, we saw the entire team be like the 30, 40, 50% owned. And now the Warriors are that team. So, I mean, I mentioned it before and just talked about it too over my exposures. Bam is somebody who I'm going to be most overweight to, especially looking at, I'm refreshing the ownership projections. But first, I do want to answer. We got a bunch of super chats that just piled in that I want to hit on really quickly before we finish out the show. First, from Stewie Griffin, any Nurk love? Big usage bump over the last 2 years without Dame and super cheap on FanDuel. Torn between him and Joval. Between him and Joval, I would prefer Nurkic. I understand why Nurkic should project well, but there's so many good plays on the slate that he's just somebody that I found difficult to get to with any kind of real regularity. I get the reason to go there for sure. Jorge wants to know, who would be your top 2 to 3 players for a single entry large GPP? All right, so outside of the obvious ones like Poole, Lamb, and Kuminga, in terms of ways to differentiate lineups a little bit, one for me would be Jason Tatum, because there's a lot of flexibility to spend up for players right now. He's only projected for 13% ownership. I think that as far as pay up options go, he's the one with the most upside combined with the least amount of ownership. And the other one for me, I know Bam is more popular now, but I'll still say Bam. By the way, actually, I'm surprised Lamb is not projected to be more popular. He's only projected for 17% ownership right now. That makes him by far my favorite tournament play of the day.
I'll add, I think that the Cleveland backcourt guys are interesting tournament options today. With no Karis LeVert, I think that they could get bumps from a playmaking responsibility. Like, they might get their minutes staggered a little bit more. I think Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland both have some sneakier upside tonight.
Got some more questions coming into the Discord channel. First from Go Blue 112. Dante and Bam or Sexton and Allen for FanDuel GPP. I prefer Dante DiVincenzo and Bam Adebayo. Same for you, Matt.
Yes.
The Black Mamba wants to know, can we talk Kyle Lowry with no guards available for the Heat? So I think Matt laid it out pretty good that there is reason to think there's a lot of upside with Kyle Lowry. I'm getting to some of it, but not a lot, just because there is so much value on this slate. I just didn't find it that hard to go from Lowry lineups to Halliburton and SGA. So to me, I'm going to hope that Lowry doesn't break this slate. I definitely think it's within the realm of possibility. We saw that game he had the other day when they were shorthanded, but I have to project Halliburton and SGA better. It's just not that hard for me in my lineups when I was building them to get up to those guys. Next question we have in here is from JEW. DKGPP viable to fade Poole and play the rest of the Warriors, not Looney, to get Giannis, SGA, Halliburton in one lineup? Yeah, I don't think you have to play Jordan Poole in all of your lineups. I think he's a very good play, but if you have a lineup with Lamb, Kuminga, DiVincenzo, yeah, I don't think you need to have Poole in that lineup. I'm totally cool with that course of action. What is your favorite value play from the Warriors right now? For me, it's Anthony Lamb.
Yeah, I think when you factor in the ownership, Anthony Lamb is a good answer there. I mean, in terms of just like pure projected value, I have Kuminga as the best on the slate. But when you're factoring then that he's going to be 50% owned and Anthony Lamb is going to be, 10, I think Lamb is the answer.
We have a super chat here from Jets World. He wants to know Clarkson and Giannis or Tatum and Markkanen or Simons in the 888 on DK. I prefer Tatum to Giannis. I prefer Clarkson to Markkanen. By the way, Looney will start, so that is now confirmed. I'll say Clarkson and Giannis over Tatum and Markkanen.
Yeah, I think it like I know you've made the case for Tatum. You like Tatum.
Yeah.
If I'm paying up for a forward, I'm just gonna find the extra money to go get Giannis.
Yeah, and it's not hard to find the extra money. I think what changed when I actually built out the lineups, and it's why it helps that I'm building out the lineups and entering them as we're talking about it, is I guess Giannis lineups, I couldn't fit 3 stars into lineups. It's not that difficult to do when Tatum is the other option. So I have lineups that have Tatum, Halliburton, and SGA. It wouldn't have been viable to do that with Giannis in the lineups as well. And
I think that's why I ended up with more Lowry than you did, because I was going up 1 and then down 1 at guard.
Fair. Very fair. By the way, the Heat players available today: Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Nikola Jovic, Bam Adebayo, Haywood Highsmith, Jamal Cain, Dwayne Dedmon, Orlando Robinson. They are once again very thin and shorthanded. I think we hit on all the questions in Discord. Let me just make sure that there's no more super chats before we wrap up the show, but it looks like we hit all of them. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I know a lot happened during the show. We tried to get you guys as much information in this hour as we possibly could. A lot happened. The news comes quick. Thank you very much once again. If you've not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and don't go anywhere because we got the NFL Live Before Lock show also coming on the channel. So if you guys are playing Showdown, check that out. Good luck. Enjoy. It was aggressively loud. That threw me off.